This episode is sponsored by Nicole from the Bronx. Hello and welcome back to Film Pro Productivity and Success, the podcast that helps film professionals and other creative people to live a more focused, effective and happy life. My name is Carter Ferguson and this is episode 72. What are SMART goals? Chuck Norris says that you should focus on what it is that you want and set a realistic goal. He says start setting goals that you feel you can accomplish and don't try to go right to the top in one leap. Every time that you accomplish one goal, you develop the strength and wisdom to accomplish the next one. Have you ever set out to achieve something for yourself and somewhere down the line realised that you'd given up on it? You might have lost interest in it because it became too complex or difficult, or it seemed to just be taking forever. Maybe something else in your life or your work got in the way and distracted you, or perhaps the mission creep that I talked about in the last episode turned your small goal into an unachievable monster. What about a hobby? Have you ever started something with great enthusiasm, researched it, spent lots of money on it, bought all the best stuff, and then 2 years later, everything you spent time and money on is now residing at the back of a cupboard gathering dust somewhere because despite of all that initial energy and focus, it just fell by the wayside. I know that I have. And that's why today I'm going to talk about SMART goals, which might not be the solution for everyone, but it is a terrific system to embrace if you want to get stuff done. What you get by achieving your goals is not as important as what you become by achieving your goals. Michelangelo Buonarroti, unquote. In 1981, a guy called George T. Duran published an article called "There's a Smart S-M-A-R-T way to write management's goals and objectives." And with that article, SMART goals were born. Many of you will already be aware of these, in fact, and you'll have learned the importance of setting SMART objectives at work or from seminars and business articles or whatever, or perhaps even when I've mentioned them, here in passing in this show. You probably already know too, but I suspect that many of you will have also have forgotten that SMART stands for, and there's variations on this, but it stands for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. But are these the only factors to consider if we want to achieve our goals? Let's look at the SMART goal-setting system more carefully. SMART is just an acronym. Each letter in the word stands for a different kind of principle that you should consider when you are setting goals. And S stands, of course, for specific. To be effective, your goal must specifically state what it is that you want to accomplish. Vague, ambiguous goals such as planning to lose weight or get fit are open to interpretation and don't provide clear focus. I will lose 2 pounds per week for the next 12 weeks, however, is an example of a specific goal, and you can break that goal down further into smaller goals or objectives that define exactly how you will accomplish the larger goal, such as I will walk briskly for 30 minutes on Tuesdays, Thursdays and Saturday mornings, or I will not snack while watching TV, and perhaps I will have fruit instead of dessert 6 nights per week. These are all specifics which will help you to achieve your goals. And that's S, be specific. But next up, we have M, which stands for measurable. SMART goals are measurable, allowing you to clearly see if you are progressing as planned. If your goal is to walk briskly for 30 minutes on Tuesdays, Thursdays and Saturday mornings, it's easy to measure whether you have accomplished that goal or not. Write down your goals and track your progress. And this is the step that many miss out, but it's very, very important. And regular listeners will know that I use whiteboards to plot my goals and objectives. That way I can see them every day, stick to the plan, and cross things off as I succeed and complete them. And I feel I have to push that point home in a lot of these shows because I know it's something that is the first thing to go when you're trying to complete that cycle of productivity that I keep going on about. If you measure your progress, then you can celebrate your wins because you know you have achieved things. I do this with seasons of the podcast episodes so that I can always measure how I am doing and what I still need to get done. And this in turn gives me drive, which makes me want to complete the next show. It's really an easy thing to do with shows. I've got 12 shows listed at the moment. I cross each one off as I go and I feel, right, I'm progressing. And if I hadn't written it down, I wouldn't be as aware of the progress as I am now. Next up, we have A in the SMART acronym, and there's some discussion about this one, so I'm going to give you a couple of options. The one I learned was attainable. Your goal needs to be achievable to be successful. In other words, it should stretch your abilities, but still remain possible. Many dreams seem impossible until you set your mind to achieving them, yet some things can't be achieved no matter how hard you try. It should be possible to reach your goal. And to make goals attainable, you need to be aware of your limitations and of how you can stretch past those limitations and beyond. I noticed during my research, though, that some people take A in the SMART acronym to instead mean action-oriented. That goals are action-oriented does make total sense to me, although it's not personally the one that I use. But action-oriented goals enable you to create concrete steps that will take you to success or to be successful in your whatever goal you're trying to achieve. The actions don't always have to be physical, though. Learning new information or skills, such as how to prepare healthy meals or train with weights, for example, from the sort of health example I was given earlier, would be an important part of that process. But you can use one or other or both of these options when you're setting SMART goals for yourself. Whatever works for you, really. Next up, we have R, which I've also seen two options for. The one I learned was realistic. SMART goals are realistic. Planning to lose £20 in a month or planning to exercise 1 hour a day if you haven't been exercising at all are what I'd call unrealistic goals that they'll lead to failure. Take your time constraints and other limitations into account, but at the same time, do make your goals somewhat challenging. Challenge can motivate you and keep you excited by having you stretch your comfort zone. As I said, though, there is another option for this one, which I kind of prefer in some ways. And the reason that I prefer it is that realistic and attainable to me are kind of the same thing in some ways. But option 2 for the letter R is relevant, as there is no point in setting goals that don't matter. Remus Serbin, in an article for hubgets.com called 5 Steps to Setting Smarter Achievable Goals, explains that relevant goals are easier to control. Why? Because through trying to achieve set goals, you can always assure yourself that the relevant goals are worthwhile. The goal needs to matter. It needs to have a significance, or otherwise it can be all too easily discarded. Let me add to that, it needs to matter to the person that's setting the goal. Having the same goal as everyone else means you have other people's goals. Also, when setting a goal, you need to ask yourself what that goal means to you. As a creative, I've spent way too many hours, days, weeks, years trying to achieve other people's goals, which is all fine and well if you're being paid or if it's in alignment with your own goals and your own values. But any goal that isn't in some way relevant to you will be all the harder to achieve. Finally, the SMART acronym gives us the letter T, which stands for time bound. Adding a deadline to your goals is simply vital to their success. If your weight loss goal is to lose 2 pounds per week for the next 12 weeks, you have a deadline to meet each week to help you focused and on track. It's the final but vital element of the SMART system of goal setting. Always, always, always set deadlines for your goals. Don't look at the bigger picture as the only achievement. Start with set, SMART goals and work up to something bigger. Jordyn Wieber, unquote. SMART goals and objectives can be incorporated into pretty much any task. They aren't just fixed to massive life goals either, but can be used incrementally to get things done in your day-to-day life and work. They're a great way for achieving weekly goals, monthly goals and quarterly goals, and can work for teams just as well as for individuals. The 12-week year system, which I've talked about in an earlier episode 12 or thereabouts, is effectively a quarterly SMART goal system that I think is a very, very powerful one. That's an episode definitely worth going back to and having a listen to. Bearing in mind my earlier episode on flexibility, please note though that the goal you set in this SMART system does not always have to be achieved, but can work simply as a guideline to help you to maintain your focus. When working with SMART goals over longer periods, you should always conduct interim evaluations, verifications, and adjustments, as it is sometimes important to respond to changes from the environment that you're working in. One warning I'd give when goal setting is that you should beware of setting goals that someone else has power over. And last year I set a goal based on an application to a mentoring program, and I talked about it, and in an earlier show it was very annoying. And the thing was, I was supremely confident that I would succeed, but in the end I didn't even get an interview for that particular thing. If there's one way of killing an objective, a goal, it's pinning any part of it on an element that you can't control. A 2007 study conducted at the Dominican University in California showed that people who write down their goals and update friends with their progress tend to be more successful in meeting their goals than those who simply think about them. That's why I will continue to urge you not just to think about this stuff, but to write it down and engage with it. And let me finish, as I said before, with the fact that when you successfully reach each goal, you should reward yourself and celebrate in some way. Although ideally not with a bar of chocolate if you're on a weight loss goal, as that would be counterproductive to say the least. But always, always remember that celebrating your successes is an integral part of the cycle of productivity and success. If you miss it out, your enthusiasm will wane. Celebrating is all too easy to miss out if you're caught up in your work. If you've earned it, give yourself a reward. And that's it. Thank you again for joining me here today. In the next episode, I'm going to be talking about SWOT analysis and why honestly analysing how you are doing, measurably, you might say analysing, is an essential business skill. Thanks for joining me here today and investing in yourself once again. If you have enjoyed the show, I'd be very grateful if you would take the time to leave a rating or a review, perhaps even on whatever app that you like to use to listen to your podcasts. That's the one thing that does seem to make a real difference to the podcast listener numbers, and it bumps the show up in the rankings at the same time. I really appreciate your listening, whether you're a long-term follower of the podcast or this is your first time hearing what I have to say. Let me end now with the words of Zig Ziglar, who said, "The great majority of people are wandering generalities rather than meaningful specifics. The fact is that you can't hit a target that you can't see. If you don't know where you're going, you will probably end up somewhere else. You have to have goals. Now take control of your own destiny. Keep on shooting, and join me next time on Film Pro Productivity and Success." The music that you can hear right now is Adventures by Ehimitsu. You can view the show notes for this episode, the full show notes, on the official website only, and that is filmproproductivity.com. You can follow my personal accounts on Twitter and Instagram at fight_director, or follow the show on Twitter at FilmProProdPod, or on Facebook at FilmProProductivity. Please support the show by subscribing, spreading the word, and leaving an awesome review.